Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Wings Podcast. This is your host, Milind Agnihotri. On today's show, we will meet Neha Bhave, who is a hydrogeologist working in the area of groundwater research for past 7 years. She has done her master's in geology and holds a gold medal on the subject. Her work has taken her to several villages across 10 states in India. What energizes Neha is traveling, dancing, and sometimes doing absolutely nothing. Welcome, Neha, to this episode of Wings Podcast.
Hello, Milind, and hello everyone listening to me.
How are you, Neha, today?
I'm doing great. It's been a busy day.
I can understand, but to be very honest, this word hydrogeologist, I'm curious. I understand hydro, I understand geology. I'm sure this has something to do with water and earth.
Absolutely.
So why don't you walk us through as to what is hydrogeology and what exactly are you doing in this area of work?
So, like Milind, you said, it's about water in the rocks below the ground. So, we work on something known as aquifers, and we do research on water that is there in these aquifers. So, we work with different communities across India, often even in places like Bhutan and Nepal, where we work on water, but specifically groundwater that occurs or comes out from rocks. So whether it's working on dug wells or bore wells or as simple as springs, which naturally come out onto the surface of the earth and which is used by absolutely every Indian across the rural settings of India.
Oh, this sounds so marvelous. But when you say we, whom are you really referring to? Are you working with an organization? Who is this we?
Yes. So I work in an organization, a not-for-profit organization in Pune, and it's been working in this field for 20 years. The organization.
Okay.
I have been here for the past 7 years. And we, which is a group of 15 of us, technical experts, who work on this subject across the country. And we work with communities right the grassroots levels.
So you actually have to travel to the hinterland, because that's what I read out in the introduction, that you have traveled across many villages in 10 states of the country.
Yes.
So why don't we start with the very first experience of yours? Where was it? How was it? When was it?
Yeah. So it's a brilliant experience. The entire journey has been enriching all throughout these 7 years. And my journey in this entire organization, or in this field, in fact, happened to be in a place which for me existed only on a map till then. I never dreamt I would ever go there. And that's in villages of Jharkhand. And these are tribal villages. And I happened to be on the project because someone was removed out from the project and I had just newly joined. So it was a completely new exposure for me, going from a purely technical geology background student with no field experience to directly interacting with villagers, with communities in the rural hinterlands of Jharkhand. So I was a little apprehensive. I was anxious. I didn't know what to expect. Okay, so because it was a blank slate for me. But I trusted the people I went with. I trusted the people I was working with. So because we work with the local organizations, I often also have to travel alone. So after the initial first few visits, I was traveling alone to Jharkhand.
But what was this village in Jharkhand? Do you remember the name and do you remember the experience? Why don't you walk us through that?
Absolutely. So it was in a district of Ramgarh. The specific name of the village is Bhubui. Okay.
Bhubui.
Bhubui. Yes.
How do you spell that?
Bhui.
Can I see it on Google Maps?
Yes, you can, and I can show it to you.
Wow.
Because I still remember it very vividly. I close my eyes and I am there. I have beautiful memories over there. I never thought I would speak this out to anybody, that villages in Jharkhand are places which I would want to visit again. It's just maybe because it was the first experience for me, but it was also the people whom I was interacting with. The whole platform that I got was overwhelming.
So what was the project that you actually went for?
The project was basically a large project which was working on agriculture. So climate resilience agriculture was being introduced to these small farmers of Jharkhand as well as West Bengal. So there were people from the Australian University, there were people from local organizations who were working on agriculture, and they were basically introducing a different method of rice cultivation to those people and seeing how it rolls out, because given the climate change and everything, and Aquadam, where I'm working, was looking at the groundwater aspect of it and trying to understand how water requirement in this new system that they were talking about would actually play a vital role. So that's how this entire project happened, and it's been one of the most successful and beautiful memories of my journey till date.
Did you have to actually interact with the people of Bhoboi village?
We have to.
So how was the conversation? Any incident do you remember of you talking to somebody who is a farmer cultivating rice, trying to learn new ways of cultivation using new technology that you guys were introducing?
It was an amazing experience. I mean, we have this notion that, villagers, what would they know? How much they are not exposed to a lot of things. But when you actually start interacting with them, you realize they know their work far better than what we are trying to tell them. I mean, maybe they are not exposed in terms of going to big schools or colleges or media. But when you, as an individual, go and interact with them, the experience they have, the openness, some of them are so open, they're not shy. They'll come out outrightly, they'll talk to you, whatever their experiences are. And they'll not simply accept what you're saying simply because you're an expert in your subject. They'll tell you your field experiences. But they'll be like, okay, fine, we're fine with what you're telling
हम
us.
जानते हैं हमारा काम क्या है.
बिल्कुल.
Is that what they say?
Absolutely. This is my village. This is my water, my land, and I think I know it better than you do.
Awesome. What a sense of ownership and belonging.
Completely.
Which is so what is it that Neha learned in the very first field experience, where she was actually, as you said, just out of college with a lot of theoretical background,
Yes.
but little or hardly any experience of the field. So what was it that you actually learned other than geology?
The funny part is, I realized that we need to unlearn a few things.
Say more.
Like, we've been taught from the textbook.
Correct.
That's what all our education system is about. Okay, which is of course required. But if you look at the practical side of it, not all of those things are really applicable on field as it is. So you need to tweak it to the practical realities on ground. So you realize that the way you speak to people, the way you put in your knowledge across to people has to be done in a very, very different manner. And don't look at yourself as an expert. You need to take a step back and see what the other person also has to tell you on the same subject. He is not an expert, but he's a simple person who has been living in his farm for all these years, and nobody, absolutely nobody, not even an expert on water or on agriculture, can tell you anything better than he or her themselves.
So have you been caught on the wrong foot any time in any of your field visits where you probably have done a lot of homework in terms of where you are going, why you are going, and then you are just struck saying that, listen, this is something which I have never thought of. Anything where the carpet was pulled under your rug, any of your field experiences?
Nothing that I can think of immediately. But
any surprises? I'm not saying just completely off balance, but
I'll have to think about it. But yeah, we do a certain set of homework.
Sure.
But the actual field realities turn out to be very, very different. So, for instance, you're expecting, the geology to be in a certain way, or you find certain exposures, because you're mapping out some geology, you're mapping out different groundwater sources. So based on your early experiences, you're like, fine, these are the probable things that you're going to get there. But things don't really turn out the same on field. Very rarely, in fact.
Any other experiences that you think of which has really remained with you? Jharkhand was one which happened, Bubui happened 7 years back.
Yes.
Anything that happened in the 7 years which is still like so fresh in your memory?
Fresh in my memory, in fact, all of them have been unique experiences. But touchwood, all of them have been good experiences. That's probably because, you need to, being in the profession that I am, you need to trust the other people that you're around. It's not a profession that is chosen by many females as well. So at the back of the mind, you know that there are a lot of male colleagues around you. Some of them are colleagues, some of them are just random people who are part of the project. So it's trust that you need to build. So one particular experience that I had was in one of the field visits in Maharashtra. And we had a similar project where we had to do intensive mapping of the geology.
Village similar to Bubui or?
Different.
Okay, what was
different.
It called?
The name of the village was Walwand, Walvad, Walwand.
Okay.
And just to save the morning travel, which was 2 or 3 hours from Ahmednagar, and because we had to cover a lot of stuff in a short period of time, we thought might as well stay closer to the village. And we happened to stay in a hotel which didn't have a great room, but it was basically 2 rooms in the basement below a bar. And that is one thing which I really regret, which I think I shouldn't have done. Simply because I didn't, now that I think of it, I feel it was a wrong decision that I took. But simply at that moment, it was like save the travel time, just get the work done and get out from here as quickly as possible. So that was one not so good experience. Nothing happened again, but I haven't done that ever afterwards, and never before, and no.
Yeah, field work can be very, very surprising, as they say. You never know.
Yes.
But then this profession of geology, specifically hydrogeology, how did that happen to you? I mean, is this something that you always wanted to do? Was there any dream as a child that you had, or or as it happens to many, it happened to me, that one thing leads to the other, and it's not that you happen to the profession happens to you.
Yeah.
I don't know, how has it got played for you?
Completely true, Milind. It actually happened to me. I finished my 12th from Fergusson College, and I very clearly knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to do engineering. I didn't want to do medical. I didn't want to do any mainstream science or arts or commerce. Not because I hated those subjects, but simply I didn't feel like it. And I refused to even give the entrance exam just for the sake of it. Okay, people will just give it. What's the harm in just appearing for an entrance exam? Don't do it.
Yes.
But I said, no, I am not giving the entrance exam, because I know if I do end up passing in it, you're going to push me through it. So I said, nothing doing, I am not giving the entrance exam.
Were you a bright student in school?
Mediocre.
Okay.
Not really bright.
Okay.
But I think after my 12th was when I took a completely different path.
Yes.
Or again, it happened to me. It was not something that I'd intended to. But after my 12th, I wanted to do environmental science, in fact. But because the courses, the other subject that was offered with it was zoology and botany, which I'm not very good at. So I had to opt out of environmental science, and another sort of a friend suggested that I take up geology. And I had no clue other than I'd heard the word when I was studying it in school. So I said, might as well take it up with the regular maths, science, physics.
Correct.
So I took it up, and I think the first ever lecture I sat for geology, that day, the day that hour of that subject got over, I said, this is what I want to do my bachelor's in. So that was one step. When I finished my bachelor's, I said, no, I need to do more. So that's when I did my master's in the same subject from the Pune University. And it just happened that I got the gold medal.
Why do you say that?
Because I am a sincere student. It's not because I want to get grades.
Sure.
It's
you love the subject.
I just love the subject, and no matter what I'm doing, I'll do it best.
Correct.
I'll do it best.
Correct.
So I think that was the first reason why I didn't want to give the engineering entrance exam, because I don't give an exam just for the sake of it. I mean, even if I didn't want to do engineering, I said, no, if I'm given an exam, you need to do it with sincerity. You're spending money, you're building up hopes for people around you, and even yourself maybe.
Sure.
So I said, no, if I study well, I'm going to pass it, and I might end up doing engineering. So that's how geology happened to me.
Very nice.
And
so when you chose geology as your major for your graduation, and you said you did your master's as well, what were your friends at that time studying, and what did they say to you when they learned that you are doing geology, because it's so out of the way from the mainstream?
Absolutely, man. It was a surprise, as much as a surprise for me as for the others, because
and would that include your parents too?
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
Because it was a subject unknown to everybody.
Yes.
And everybody, engineers around me, or going for medical, some of them even defense. So when I put my foot down saying that I want to do geology, the first thing was, do you even know your future? Do you know where you're going? Whether there are job opportunities?
In India, where is the job in geology? Who does geology in India? That's Government of India job.
Yes.
Right? Is that's
Yes.
possible notion there?
Yes, because they thought that only mining industry or petroleum industry, that was the limited outlook for a person doing geology. And geology was not meant to be a female's.
That's true. It's so masculine. You have to be studying rocks.
Yes.
And on the field.
Yes.
So tell us about your graduation and your masters and some of the professors that you had, because what I heard from you is that very first lecture that you had of geology, I'm sure the professor, whoever he or she was, must be in love with that subject. Otherwise, they wouldn't have got somebody like you enrolling in it.
True. Actually, I remember him very, very well. His name was Professor Sarkar. And unfortunately, he is no more. He passed away a little early. And I'm sure all those who are doing geology right now really, really miss this gem of a person.
What was so special about him?
Oh my God. He was like a person who lived geology in the truest sense. He was a person who, I still remember the very first lecture I sat. And he was there standing in front of a crowd of 150-200 kids who have probably never studied geology before, but he described the solar system, how it was formed in such an animate way that we could actually feel that there were it was happening right in front of us, the different planets colliding, forming the
You
Big
could actually
Bang
visualize
theory.
all this?
Yes, you could actually visualize all this. He was that kind of a person.
Okay.
And there's this famous Hindi dialogue, if I could change it here, you used to talk geology, used to walk geology, used to sleep geology, everything. He was the person to go to for geology.
Neha, when you say this is actually taking me back my own memory lane, when my own love for physics, which I carry even today, is thanks to one Professor Desai, who was our teacher when I was in 12th standard. And just like your class of 150 people, we would have Professor Desai calling us, at what time of the day? 6:45 in the morning.
Wow.
and he would take a 3-hour class
Wow.
till 9:45 a.m. and teach us physics with a class full of about 100 students. And I don't know about others. For me, despite there were 99 odd other students in the class, the way Professor Desai would teach us physics, whether it is light or magnetism or quantum theory, he would again be saying so animated, and I used to always feel that I'm the only one in the class. There is nobody else around me, and as if he's talking only to me, he would make it so special.
Yes.
I don't know, maybe Neha, you and I are probably blessed to have people like Professor Sarkar or Professor Desai in our lives.
Surely. In fact, I feel for subjects, especially like geology, you really need to have certain professors like this who motivate you to take these offbeat themes or subjects.
And this, I presume, motivation stayed till you did your masters as well, right?
Right. So I did my bachelor's in geology purely based on just looking at this person. And I knew at that point that, just on a bachelor's degree in geology, I am not going to find myself a job. So that's when I decided to take the second step, which was to do the master's in the subject. Now, it was either to do it in Fergusson College itself, or do it in the Pune University or the IITs. So I did a little bit of, giving examinations here and there, but I ended up doing my master's in the Pune University. And after 2 years, I happened to get a gold medal in that subject.
So that means jobs were waiting for you then?
I wish I could say that it
Why?
was true, but it wasn't. I don't know. I mean, the only job opportunities which people thought where geologists work is the mining industry, the petroleum industry, or in some government job, and I was not looking for that. I think that was the time when I really actually started doubting myself that, did I make a mistake taking this subject? And it was after I post-graduated, it was a 6-month period where I had nothing to do. And I did give a couple of interviews, one of which was in a government institute. I was not given the job, which I presume was because it was a field-oriented job, and me being a female, I was probably not selected because I thought the interview went off well. But apparently it hadn't. Then I gave an interview in a petroleum industry. Simply
Any private sector companies?
Yes. It was an international firm, not an Indian firm.
Must have been a well-paying job.
Yes. And actually, I gave it simply because all my colleagues, all 20 of us had gone for that interview. So it was more like a picnic for me. But like, chalo, let's see what happens. Let's give it a try. Let's not be too stubborn.
Yes.
So I gave the interview. I passed 2 rounds. And that's when my parents asked me that if you do give the 3rd round and you do pass, do you want to do this? And that's when I told myself, actually, no. Actually, I don't want to do this either.
Why?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't want to go into the petroleum industry. I had heard some of my seniors saying that, what they do is simply pick up samples from one place to the other. That's where you start. And I'm like, I've not done a master's degree to pick up samples so that somebody else can analyze it. No. If I am collecting the samples, I am going to analyze it. But in the petroleum industry, it doesn't begin that way. So I said, no, hold on, let's wait. Even though it was a very, nice looking job on the field, good paying, I said, no, wait, I need to take a step back again.
And how did you then land up your first job? And how long after doing your master's?
So like I said, it was 6-month period. And I had another colleague who was going to give an interview in this organization where I'm currently working. And I had applied for a 1-year short project-based application in the same organization.
That's Aquadam, right?
Yes, that's Aquadam. And 3 of us had gone for the interview. They selected 2 on the project basis and 1 as a full-time employee. And I happened to be selected as one of the full-time employees.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And what was the feeling at that time when you landed in that job?
I was confused. Because I didn't know what hydrogeology in the true sense was. I mean, I had studied it, okay, but actually doing stuff on the field, seeing how it is getting done, interacting with communities on the ground was something which is not taught in universities. Absolutely not. The science part, yes, I was confident about, but taking the science to communities, interacting with the communities was a completely different ball game for me. And I took it up as a challenge. I didn't doubt myself, but it was a challenge. I've seemed to liking it now.
Yeah, because you are absolutely right. I mean, the university does teach you the science part of what you're trying to learn, but then there's this social interaction or the sociology
Yes.
that goes along with it. I don't know. Maybe you can tell us more. How big is the social interactions play in this? But then, Aquadam, unlike a large multinational petroleum company,
Mhm.
is a small not-for-profit organization with just 15-20
Yes.
experts.
Yes.
Didn't the scale of the organization play on your mind?
It
What did you saw in that opportunity which made you say yes?
it was the opportunity to learn. I took it up as a job. Initially, I was thinking I'll probably just do it for a year or two, see how I'm doing, see whether I like it or not, and maybe decide 2 years down the line. And those 2 years had really changed my entire perspective about not just the subject, not just about the people, but even myself. And it's taken me places.
Yes, and some of the places where you went were in many ways, quote unquote, not so safe and hospitable. And I don't know, how did you feel about your own sense of safety and well-being when you were going to those places, and how did your parents take to it?
There was a lot of apprehension, a lot of anxiety, not just within me, but even people around me, especially my parents.
Very naturally, isn't it?
Naturally, definitely. And when I told them that my first visit as part of the organization was to a place which for most of us generally just exists on a map. I had gone to Jharkhand and West Bengal, and I'm talking about really remote villages. And they were really worried that how am I going to do this on my own? Because they know it's a male dominated field.
Yes.
So going there by myself, even if there was a senior colleague accompanying me, but unknown person to my parents.
Of course.
So trusting a completely different person with your daughter takes a lot of courage. Letting her go so far alone, not knowing where she is staying, how she is staying, what food is she eating, whether she is safe or not. So therefore they used to call me almost every night or every 2 nights to check on me, to check if everything is fine, to also check whether there is somebody other than my colleague who is also accompanying me. Is there a female from another organization?
So they also went through a lot of agony in their mind, I would like to believe.
I'm sure they did.
And if you want to say something to them right now for what they went through to let you do what you wanted to do, what would you like to say to them?
I'll say hats off. It's unbelievable what my parents and my sister have done for me, the faith they have showed in me. And I wish every parent supports their daughter or their son to do something offbeat. Put a little faith. If you've
Or
brought...
what offbeat, or probably what they want to pursue as their passion.
Exactly.
It need not be offbeat, but it could be simply pursue their passion.
Yes.
And in this pursuit of your passion, which are the various parts of the country did you end up traveling over the years then?
Wow. Okay. So, like I said, I started off with small villages in Jharkhand and West Bengal. Then the second sort of project was in the south, which was in the Nilgiris, Tamil Nadu. Then I worked in some parts of Maharashtra, which is Ahmednagar basically, and parts of Amravati as well. Then western parts of India, which is Gujarat, and another few northern states where I worked majorly on springs, small projects, where I worked in Uttarakhand, I worked in Himachal, and in the northeast I worked in Nagaland and Mizoram. So it's taken me to almost all the four corners of the country.
So then wouldn't that be geological terrains which are so very different from each other?
Very different.
And I'm sure the underground water, I don't understand that science, but as a layman, I can ask say very naively that the way the water flows in these different parts of the country is also very different.
It's very, very different.
So then, as a hydrogeologist, what are those 1 or 2 or 3 questions that you are engaging with or dealing with, which doesn't matter what is the geographical terrain or what is the flow of water underneath? As a hydrogeologist, you are struggling with those 2 or 3 fundamental questions. What would they be?
The fundamental questions are, what source of groundwater are we looking at? That's the first thing that we look at.
Okay.
So are we in a particular location? Are we looking at a well, that is a dug well, or are we looking at a bore well, or are we looking at a spring? So based on that, we look at the geology behind it. And like you said, across the country, we have such a diverse geological, assemblage that it's very difficult to have a good study of it and go there and find it there. You have always surprises there. And it's understanding how the groundwater is flowing beneath the surface. So there are small techniques that we teach people on how to measure or how to record different water levels. If it's wells or if it's springs, how do you measure the discharge of different springs, and what does this information really tell you? So
as a country, we have this the national song Vande Mataram, where one of the line goes Sujalam Sufalam Malayaja Shitalam Sasya Samalam Mataram Vande Mataram.
Yes.
So is India, in terms of water, is Sujalam Sufalam country? Just a little layperson question.
Yes.
With so much of let's say 80, 90, 100 days of rains, so many sources for the rivers, from the glaciers. We have the land where water is flowing all the time. So as a hydrogeologist, how do you look at this? Are we Sujalam Suflam? Are we in a happy place as a country?
See, frankly speaking, yes, we are, but we just need to know how to manage it. Unfortunately, the way we are managing our groundwater resources is not really great. So we believe that whatever water is there beneath our surface is something that needs to be managed. Okay, we are a Sujalam Sufalam country, but little bit of knowledge about what are we really extracting from the subsurface, how much we are extracting, and whether it's really sustainable or not. If we put a little thinking on that, I think nothing can beat us. But unfortunately, across the entire globe, we are the country which abstracts the maximum amount of groundwater in 1 year. I'm so sorry to say that, but yes, that's the truth.
Well, Neha, actually this conversation we can go on for hours on this subject because it is so fascinating. But in the interest of time, let me kind of change track and ask you a question. Then when Neha Bhave is not a hydrogeologist, who is she?
Very interesting question. So I personally, if I'm not working or if I'm not at work, I enjoy dancing. I enjoy listening to music, of course, watching movies. And often there are times when I don't like to do anything at all, because given the work that I do, it's a lot of extensive field work.
A lot of physical work.
Yes, a lot of travel. Sometimes, even traveling by plane continuously, traveling by train can get tiring on you.
Of course.
So there are times when I really don't want to do anything. But when I say not doing anything, my ears and eyes are open. I love listening to birds chirping, which is such a rarity nowadays because there's so much other noises around that those poor little birds singing around you, or those animals, you just completely ignore it. So I take out the opportunity that whenever I get the time, I take a step back, I sit in a balcony, or if I can take a holiday, go to a really, really quiet place with absolutely no tourists. I'm okay, I don't like tourist places, and sit there and just listen to nature, listen to the wind blowing, listen to thunder, listen to rain, listen to birds, animals, and I love doing it.
So let's do a little simulation game, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Okay, here you are, 7-8 years into your career as a hydrogeologist. If you look back to Neha, who started her geology, pursuit of the subject in your college,
Mm-hmm.
if you were to look at her and say something to her now, what would you tell her?
I would probably tell her that take it easy. Life has some really, really beautiful experiences for you. You've been brought up in a very nice way, both financially as well as a person.
Yes.
And there's nothing to worry about. But yes, you need to think about what you want to do ahead.
And if that 18-year-old Neha were to look at the today's Neha, what would she say to her now?
I think she'd be amazed as to how her journey has made her into such a different person. I wouldn't have ever imagined that I would come so far in this subject, because I was a person who was not really good with socializing with people. Going to the person I am right now today, interacting with villagers across the country, and I've never seen their faces before, and you go and talk to them just as like people of every day, and that's me now.
Let's future gaze, and if the Neha of today, who's sitting in front of me right now,
Right.
were to look at the Neha 10 years from now, what would you say to her?
I would tell her, keep traveling, keep meeting new people, keep learning from different people, from their cultures, and don't stop learning, because I think learning from people is what makes you a great person. And listen, there's a lot more to listen from people rather than giving out your knowledge to them. Listen, and I think
So wonderful. I know, Neha, you listen to a lot of music
yes.
and of different types. If there is one song which is your favorite, for whatever reason,
Okay.
what would that be?
Okay, I have a song in mind.
Tell me.
Can I sing it?
Oh, wow. Why don't you? Zahin-Nasib, Irshad. Please go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to try. I'm not a good singer, but I'm going to try.
That's a
It's,
treat. That's such a treat.
अभी ना जाओ छोड़कर कि दिल अभी भरा नहीं. So, अभी ना जाओ छोड़कर कि दिल अभी भरा नहीं. अभी ना जाओ छोड़कर कि दिल अभी भरा नहीं.
Hey.
Thank you.
Neha, actually, I should be singing this song to you, because honestly, time is one element on the podcast where you have no choice but to accept the time boundaries, and I honestly would not want to leave you and say abhi na jao chhodkar kyunki dil abhi bhara nahi. Would love to have you back again on this podcast in some of the subsequent episodes.
Sure.
But Neha, every moment of this conversation has been so enriching for me personally, because geology as a subject is something which, of course, one is fascinated by only because of seeing National Geographic films, which something probably the West teaches us all the time. But there is so
Right.
much of that is happening right here in India with young Indian like you, who is doing some amazing work in helping people in rural India, to help them in their cultivation and basic agriculture by making groundwater resources more efficient.
Yes.
So I'm so proud of you, and I'm sure all our listeners would be so happy to listen to some of the amazing work that you're doing. On behalf of all our listeners, I wish you good luck and have travel to wherever you want, because that's your dream. But as we come to the end of this conversation, just want to know from you, what are you feeling right now? What are you thinking right now?
This is an amazing experience. Like I said, I never thought I had anything to give out to anybody. Truly, like I said, I've always been a listener. There's very little talking or interaction or giving out information from my end is what I do. So when I was asked to do this, I really had to think back as to, do I really have anything interesting to tell people? But when I thought about it, or rather when I spoke to Asha, that's when I realized that yes, there could be something to share with everyone. So I can't thank you both enough for giving us, or all of us, this experience.
No, the honor and pleasure and joy is entirely ours, because Neha, the Wings podcast platform is actually for young Indians like you, to share your story. I mean, the whole idea is to bring out the extraordinary in the ordinary. And you beautifully said something a little back about the ability to listen. So here also, there's an opportunity available through the Wings podcast to every listener of the podcast, that the stories at one level may sound so simple and so ordinary, but if one listens to these stories very, very carefully, you see a pulsating heart of a young Indian who believes so passionately in his or her cause. So and there's so much extraordinary things that could be discovered. So thank you so much for coming on this podcast. On behalf of our listeners, I just want to say thank you, and wish you good luck and take care.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for your time today, my dear listeners. This is your host, Milind Agnihotri, signing off. Goodbye, take care, and stay safe. This podcast is for general information purposes only and should not be considered as a piece of any professional advice. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of its guest. Creators of this podcast expressly disclaim any and all liability or responsibility for any direct or indirect, consequential or other damages arising out of any individual's use of this podcast. For feedback and suggestions, please write to wingsindia75@gmail.com. Thank you.